Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. I am your host, Kimberly Winborne. You would probably love to see my face. I am your host, Kimberly Winborne. Welcome to another episode of the Collaboration Culture podcast. I am excited this evening because I have an amazing guest, and we are in our series, the fourth quarter success series. And so, for those of you who have been watching over the past month, we are now in November. We have had a series of professionals to come on and give us fourth quarter success tips. So, what I want you to do is grab your coffee, grab your tea, grab your water, whatever it is. And then also, I would love for you to share this broadcast with your network. I would love for you to do that. And when you do, be sure to hashtag the collaboration culture. And what is a culture of collaboration? Collaboration and coffee, or coffee and collaborations, has been the name since the beginning of these shows back in 2018. So we're at 4 years, going into 5 years now. And the podcast came along because I realized that as a community, if we look forward to, as well as have an intention to work together, then we can bring all of our skills and build our own local communities, our own neighborhoods, our own economy in order to grow financially exponentially. So, on the back end of it is all about being able to create generational wealth and transfer that and create a legacy. So, we talking, but there's a bigger picture, right? There's always got to be a bigger vision. And so today I have an amazing guest on. All right, and I want to give you a little bit of information about her. So I'm going to share her this cute little picture that I found that I love. Look at this, y'all. This is so nice. And her name is Synetheia, so she's joining us now. But Dr. Synetheia is a personable, inspiring, and innovative professional committed to equipping people and organizations to achieve optimal success in life, faith, and leadership. She is the president and lead coach at I Am Dr. Newby Global LLC and president and lead consultant of Greater Works Global Solutions LLC. As the creator of the BACU brand and founder of the Lioness Leads, which I love. We're going to talk a little bit more about all of this, but I especially want to hear about that, especially that whole lioness leading part. A global mobilization of kingdom women, speaking my language, who lead. Dr. Synetheia encourages women to live and lead boldly, authentically, courageously, and unapologetically. And so we're going to find out a little bit more about all that she has to offer. She possesses 20 plus collective years of demonstrated work, and she is just such an awesome woman, and also woman of God. But let me tell you, guess what else? We went to college together. Y'all know I love my Vikings whenever I can. Right. Whenever I can have my fellow Vikings on, I absolutely love it. And so, y'all, please welcome Dr. Synetheia Newby. Please welcome her to our podcast. And as I mentioned, Please share. So I'm gonna give you the platform to, in your own words, if you want to add anything, adjust anything to how I introduced you, please feel free to do that now.
I don't, Kim. I think you did a fantastic job. You kept it sweet and simple. Let's just get into this chat. I'm just ready to talk with you tonight. Let's just talk. Let's
Yeah.
do it.
Okay. And I'm excited too. And one of the things that I want to really dive into, I don't want to start here, but I do want to really dive into authenticity and identity and how that relates to purpose, but especially because we're talking about the fourth quarter and our success goals. And so I want to let you guys know that is going to be a topic of conversation. So if you know somebody struggling in that space, purpose, walking in their authenticity, and not trying to be anybody else other than themselves. We're going to have a good conversation about that. But how I want to start is, let's talk about the lioness leads. Tell us
Yes.
a little more about that.
Oh man, Kim. So I feel like Sophia Petrillo in Golden Girls, she said, picture it, Sicily, 19. Well,
I used to love that.
so literally, I had a Sophia Petrillo moment. I guess around 2019, early
Okay.
2020. About doing a book anthology with amazing women who are leading in different spaces.
Yeah.
And so this book anthology was designed to talk about the struggle that women who lead often have with fear.
Yeah.
So often when we are particularly in positions of leadership, we don't have the space and the safety to be afraid, Kim.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
people just expect us to keep executing, keep going, and producing. So the vision was to bring these women together to talk about their stories of triumphing over fear.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in prayer about it. God is like, the lioness leads. And I said, I'm sorry?
Yeah.
He said, the lioness leads. I said, what does that mean? And
Yeah.
so I began to study about the lioness and just how amazing, the lion is. And we talk about and we celebrate the lion often, right? As this the king. But what I found when I studied is that the lioness is the one who is really the backbone.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Get into that. Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Lionesses are the backbone and of the pride, and lionesses are the backbone in a couple of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
One, they're the ones who go out for the kill to get the prey to bring back for everyone to be able to feast off of, whether they go out solo or they go out in a tribe, which is
Mm-hmm.
the importance of collaboration and connecting. They
Yes.
go out and they secure the kill and they bring it back. What I also found out, though, Kim, is that even when they go out there, sometimes they get injured, they get
Mm-hmm.
battered, they're scarred, they're wounded, but they still go back and fight another day. I said,
Yes.
okay. I said, okay.
Perseverance.
Perseverance. I said, okay, I see where we're kind of going with this a little bit. Then the other thing that I learned about lionesses is that they are the nurturers and the mentors in the
Yes.
pride as well. So when the little cubs are coming up, not only are they being mom to them, but they're also preparing them for their leadership role and what they will do as they become self-sufficient and have to go out by themselves.
Yes.
And this is so critical, especially for the male cubs, because they will soon have their own prides. But it's the lioness that's nurturing them into their leadership role. And I
Yes.
said, man, we on to something here now. And so then the other thing that I found out is the power of community, how lionesses really lead and work together with one another. Lionesses are so viciously protective of one another, of their babies, their pride, their territory. And I started thinking, Kim, I said, that's who we are as women who lead.
Yeah.
We are perseverers. We are resilient. We get wounded. We get scarred. We get up and we still go back out for the kill. That's
Yes.
what we do as women who lead. We're also nurturers. We're coaches. We're mentors, bringing up the next generation of leaders, whether those leaders are your own children in your household. That's
Mm-hmm.
what we do. And
Yeah.
then we always talk about the power of collaboration amongst women. And there's always such a narrative of competition that happens amongst us as women. But you can look to the lioness to see the power that comes along with being in covenant relationship with one
Mm-hmm.
another.
Yeah.
So the
I love
lioness,
that.
yeah, the lioness leads comes out of the realities of who the lioness is in real time in the wild. This is who the lioness is. And as women who lead, we are navigating treacherous, often treacherous time, territory and terrain
Yes.
as we lead. So it made sense that the lioness leads. We're lionesses and we're out here leading. And particularly for those of us who are believers in the Lord Jesus Christ, we are leading
Mm,
the glory of God to advance the kingdom of God.
absolutely.
So yeah, I'll take a pause there because honey, I could talk about the lioness leads all day.
Yeah, okay, so you just went somewhere that I wanna stay for a second because
Yeah.
you're talking about the kingdom and you're talking about the
Yeah.
lioness. So what
Mhm.
is the responsibility on the back end for that lioness in order to be able to remain in position to do
Yeah.
all of the things that she is made to do, she is built to do?
Yeah.
She has that innate desire to do, but she doesn't quite have that. Like, what is your, view of the process in order to
Yeah.
be able to to fully maximize and walk in that role.
Yeah, so I think 2 words come to mind, identity and purpose.
Yeah.
1, the lioness is clear on who she is, and she
Mhm.
doesn't apologize. She doesn't
Mhm.
apologize for going out there, fighting, and if necessary, killing to supply for the pride. Um, she understands that sacrifice comes with that. That part of
Mhm.
being who she is, she has to sacrifice. And
Yeah.
so I think one of the things that is so important for us as believers that sometimes becomes a disconnect is that we forget who we are.
Yeah.
We either forget or we apologize for who we
Mhm.
are. We want other people to feel comfortable with
Mhm.
our power, our strength, the gifts, the talents, and abilities that God has given us. And
Yeah.
so often we shrink in spaces where we should be leading. And
Yeah.
so the lioness never loses sight of that. She never gets up and says, I wish I was a cheetah today. Today would be a
Mm.
better day to be a tiger. She fully embraces who she is and she walks in that authority. And I think that's one of the pieces that we have to always remember um, as believers is understanding who we are and
Mhm.
who we were always created to be, the authority that we were given before the foundations of the earth. And I think the other thing we have to remember is our purpose. You know,
Mhm.
everything in the world has a purpose. Everything that's created has a purpose. This mug that I have has a
Mhm.
purpose.
Yeah.
So it is with us. God didn't say, maybe it's a good day to make Kim. Maybe it's a good day to make Synetheia. No, it was a purposeful decision that was made. And each of us, I like to put it this way. And I did a speak about a year ago talking about purpose as a seed.
Mhm.
That for us, all of us have a seed in us called purpose.
Mhm.
From the time we were created in our mother's womb, we have a seed called purpose.
Yeah.
And what has to happen though is that we have to daily cultivate that seed. And so, what
Yeah.
happens for many of us who struggle with knowing what our purpose is in the world, and there are a lot of us, I mean, even I have struggled in time past with really understanding who I was, but a lot of times that seed of purpose, Kim, is covered over by trauma,
Mhm.
covered by negative narratives, things that people have spoken to us and
Yeah.
told us, and
Mhm.
that's covered over purpose. Competition, trying to be like other people, has covered up purpose. And so, so many things compete for the purpose that God put inside of us.
Yeah.
And so, part of what becomes so important for us is to take the time to really uncover, to go back to the source, the one who created us and gave us the purpose, and
Mhm.
allow Him to pull back the layers and to heal those places in us. So then we have ground that is soft that can be turned over and we can cultivate that purpose and then flow and walk in that purpose. So,
Absolutely. Now, these are things that you're talking about in your program. You're
yeah.
talking about this. Okay, so let's stop. Let's talk about access for a second,
Mhm.
and how you understand and or know that you have that access when you're not connected
Yeah.
to the Lord and Savior Jesus
Mhm.
Christ. When you're not connected to the kingdom, how do you lead somebody to understand that they still have a purpose separate from that, but
Yeah.
they still have an identity?
Yeah, that's so good. And so, as a life and leadership coach, because I coach women who are believers and those who are not believers,
Yeah.
right? There's some practical things and tools that I do with all of my clients that I think, even for the person who is not a believer, it helps to get us on the trajectory and into that conversation about purpose.
Mhm.
One of the tools that I love to do with my clients is the strength finders and now, gosh, strengths Clifton's Strengths
Yeah.
Finders Assessment. My goodness, it's a mouthful by Gallup. I
Yeah, I've
love to
done that
do
before.
yeah,
Mhm.
I love to do that assessment with my clients. I also love to do the DISC leadership assessment with
Yeah.
them because
Mhm.
here's what both of those assessments do. They point out what our strengths are. They
Yeah.
show us what our internal bench strength is. And
Mhm.
when you can begin to conceive what your strengths are, it helps to begin to paint the picture of the things that you do really well.
Yeah.
And if you can get your arms around the things that you do really well, it begins to uncover what your purpose is. So
Absolutely.
whether you take it from the perspective of, as a believer, I go back and I have a conversation with God that says, show me who I was before the foundations of the earth. The
Mhm.
same thing can be accomplished through using assessment tools. And then it's the value of having a coach, because having a coach, they walk you through that assessment tool and pull back the
Mhm.
layers. And so the same thing is accomplished. It's
Yeah.
the same thing. It's called the Clifton Strengths Finder Assessment by Gallup, Gallup. I believe if you Google Gallup, you should get to the website that takes you to Clifton Strengths Finder. And the other one was the DISC assessment. Yeah.
DISC.
hmm So I think assessment tools are really big. I think coaching is really big because coaches don't tell you what to do. Coaches help you to discover what's already on the inside of you and realize what
Mhm.
you have the capacity to do. And that's what I love about coaching, because I'm not giving you anything new. I'm just pulling back the layers to help you
Yeah.
discover who you are and what your purpose is. And what I have found working with clients is that when I walk them through these assessment tools and we do coaching together, they begin to see a pattern in terms of career choices they've made. They begin
Mhm.
to see a pattern in terms of relationship choices, and they begin to get closer to understanding, wait a minute, maybe this is why I'm here. And I never thought about it that way. But
Yeah.
every decision points us closer to what our purpose is and helps us to uncover it. So there's a space for the believer, for the unbeliever, for the person who believes in no God, other gods, wherever you fall, you still
Yeah.
have a purpose, and we can still uncover what that purpose is.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
know, I am a fan of assessments. I really truly am. And I also believe that so many people are walking around trying to figure out where they fit and how that relates to business. That is why I think people continue to climb the wall just a bit and then feel like they're getting knocked down, or there are cycles of different things. We're still holding on to fear, we're still holding on to this or to that, and we're always looking. And it goes back to purpose, and I want to roll into identity a little bit. We're always looking to the left or the right to figure out what we should do, how we should be moving, how we should be evolving for our own success, which when you tap into your identity, you
Mhm.
realize that that is not possible for your success 100%. And
Yeah.
so I want to talk a minute about identity from the perspective of connecting back to your original self, that assessment that you're talking about, that
Yeah.
original person that God made you to be that nobody else can be. And I'm always
Mhm.
talking about how we are made in the image of God and what that truly means, not just for ourselves, but even in relation to others, like being
Yeah.
able to see that in others. So can we talk about that for a minute? Identity, and really getting back to the original you, who you are, how God created you to be able to walk in that identity with that lioness's boldness.
Yeah.
What are the steps, would you say, as an entrepreneur to be able to achieve that?
Wow, that's a great and loaded, multi-layered question. So I think the first thing I would start off by saying is that what I've come to understand from my own journey is that identity is an ongoing process.
Yeah, that's good.
And here's what I mean by that. I think that even when we discover what our purpose is and what on earth we're here for, I think
Hmm.
that as we become more comfortable with what we see and who and what we learn about who we are,
Yeah.
I think that it's like climbing a staircase. And the more
Hmm.
comfortable we get, the more confident we become. So I
Mhm.
don't think that confidence automatically comes with identity. I think we build confidence the more we learn about who we are, what our strengths are, what our gifts are, what our capacity is. I
Yeah.
think it grows. And I believe that, again, that's an ongoing process that we
Yeah.
undertake. I believe that as we become more mature, just as people, as we become
Mhm.
more mature, um, we learn more about who we are. I
Yeah.
always tell people that every decade of my life has created a light bulb moment,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
discovered something different about who I am. And
Yeah.
the reason why it was something different is because there were things that might have happened in that decade, let's say my 30s decade, that uncovered pieces of me that I didn't know about in my 20s. And
Yeah.
that had I known about it in my 20s, I probably couldn't even have appreciated it because I wasn't mature enough to do so.
Yeah.
So I think, Kim, that's the first thing we have to embrace is understanding that identity it's an ongoing life journey. I
Mhm.
think the other thing that comes along with this conversation of identity is that for many of us, there's a lot of unlearning that we
Mhm.
have to do.
Yeah.
That for some of us from our childhood and even into our adulthood, we had so many voices telling us who we were not, what we were not good enough to do, what we were not good enough to be. And
Yeah.
sometimes that loudest voice was our own voice
Yeah.
telling us what we could not do. So I think part of identity is embracing the process of stripping off the layers. For
Mhm.
me, my process has included mentors,
Mhm.
coaches, spiritual leaders, and a therapist. And I paused there for a second
Amazing
because
formula.
yeah, yeah, it's not been one thing that
Yeah.
has helped me in my identity journey. It has been the influence of different people coming into my life at the perfect time and season, and I may not even have embraced it
Yeah.
as the perfect time and season, but they came at a time and season that helped me get a little farther along in my journey. And so I
Yeah.
always tell people that I'm an advocate for Jesus and a therapist because you have some people
Yes.
that will say, well, I'm gonna pray about it. And prayer is beautiful and it is powerful. But I
Yeah.
believe something else that is as powerful is taking your phone and putting on your calendar an intentional appointment to seek a
Yes.
mental health professional because sometimes trauma has hit us so hard in our lives, we cannot unlearn and pull back the layers by ourselves. And we
Yes.
will never get to that place of discovering who we really are unless we have some help along the way to pull back those trauma layers. So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. You hit the nail on the head with that. I really in my coaching practice and the things that I do in finance and I end up having to speak with people a lot about their own development,
Yeah.
how they trace, I mean, and track who they are today when it comes to
Mhm.
finances, the to help to get rid of the guilt that they carry about the
Yeah.
mistakes that they made and how it weighs on them so that they don't even have hope in the future enough to think about it, so
Yeah.
they're not saving, they're not, all these different
Mhm.
things, and it's a kind of cycles, and it takes them down a rabbit hole. And I
Mhm.
remember when I realized that in my business,
Mhm.
how a lot how I was like, whoa, I need to take a step back and get some development myself in order to be able to handle this. So as we
Yeah.
talk about, relationships with our clients, relationships with ourselves, and how trauma can affect us,
Yeah.
that program that you have, the Lioness Leads, as
Mhm.
well as the anthology,
Yeah.
I would love to hear just a little bit more about that process with the ladies or
Yeah.
whoever is a part of that anthology that you were working with.
Yeah.
I remember we sort of chit chat about that,
Mhm.
loosely, and I've heard this before
Yeah.
in other anthologies. So, can you speak to that a bit because you were dealing with a variety of women?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two things I want to touch on because I think the latter I forgot to address in your last response was
Mhm.
or question, which was linking to business, how the
Yeah.
importance of as entrepreneurs and business owners, it is so important that we be clear on who we are and what our
Mhm.
purpose is, because otherwise we will be in the marketplace doing things that have nothing at all to do with
Nothing
our
at all.
purpose and who we are, and we will find ourselves in an inner conflict, in a profit conflict, just a conflict all around because we're not flowing organically in where we
Mhm.
should be in business. So I do want to say that to make that connection. Now with the Lioness Leads, man, the journey was so amazing with these women.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't know, Kim, when I brought together these 14 women, I
Mhm.
did not know what the journey was gonna do for us individually,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking book anthology that's gonna help somebody else.
Mhm.
But what happened in this process is we helped ourselves in
Yeah.
community. So we
Mhm.
have built our own little mini community where we are still connected with each
Yeah.
other,
Mhm.
because what the process did was help us to look at our own level of boldness,
Mhm.
authenticity, our courage, and having an unapologetic mindset. So the book, The Lioness Leads Stories of Triumph Over Fear, which, if you're interested, you can go to Amazon to grab a copy, Apple Books. You can go to thelionessleads.com. You can even go to my website, which Kim will share later, to get a copy. But what was so powerful is we broke the book up into 4 sections. And the women told their stories either as it related to having boldness to overcome fear, authenticity to overcome fear, courage to overcome fear, or being unapologetic. So the book is broken into those 4 sections.
Okay.
And so we had an amazing publishing team, Purpose Publishing Company, led by Siobhan Carter. We had an
Mhm.
amazing publisher. And the way she set the process up for us is that I did an opening session with the women, did an interest meeting,
Mhm.
for everyone to come together, talk to them about the lioness, the same way we talked as we began. And then
Yeah.
they applied to, be a part of the book. And those who were selected, we spent time doing individual sessions. The publishers met with each author individually as many times as it took to walk through the barriers they felt, because for many of them, this snippet of their story, their leadership story that they shared, they'd
Mhm.
never shared it publicly before.
Wow. Yeah.
So it was pulling off a layer of something they had walked through and triumphed over, but they never talked about it. And
Mhm.
isn't that how we are as women often, Kim, is
Absolutely.
that we
Yes.
go through stuff and
Mhm.
nobody really knows, because we still gonna show up with face, we still gonna
Mhm.
show up and roll, we're still gonna show up and execute. But
Yeah.
there are real challenges that we never talk about and things that we triumphed over. So for some of them, it was tough.
Mhm.
It was tough. So the other thing that we offered in partnership is that I did coaching sessions
Mhm.
with each of the women as
Yeah.
part of their process.
Mhm.
Whether at the beginning they felt stuck and was like, I can't even put pen to paper right now. Whether
Mhm.
it was after the first draft and they had to go back and flesh out things a little bit more. I think that coaching support was so important in the process. But
Mhm.
the most beautiful part of it is that for as many tears as some of them shed as they talked about the pain of what they'd overcome, on the other side of this book anthology, I watched them thrive and many of them emerge like
Yeah.
a butterfly out of a cocoon in their businesses, in
Mhm.
their personal lives, in their spiritual lives. There was such a transformation that happened that for me as the visionary author was so unexpected. I
Yeah.
thought we were writing a book for other people, Kim. It was to
Right.
help other people.
And you were healing.
We were healing.
Mhm. Yeah.
I just want that to breathe for a second. We were
Yeah.
healing
Yeah.
in the process. We
Yeah.
were being vulnerable in the process. And
Mhm.
in our vulnerability, we were able to help so many women around the world who have talked about the power of this book, saying, I could identify. I
Yeah.
saw myself in her story. I saw myself in this person's story. And I
Mhm.
think that is so important, as we walk through life, is that it is we have to be able to see our story in somebody else's story.
Yeah.
One, it gives us a humility.
Yeah.
Two, it gives us more grace, that we walk with people with more grace and more understanding, that everybody has been through something or
Yeah.
is going through something. And I think that becomes so important for us, even as business owners, because it impacts how we walk with our clients, how we engage with our clients. And that could be in
Mhm.
any industry. I don't
Yeah.
care if you work in finance, if you work in coaching, if you work in leadership, wherever you are in your business, in terms of industry, when we know who we are,
Mhm.
when we are on our own identity journey and embracing every step of it, it helps us to walk with people from a place of service, as opposed to, let me just collect these
Yeah,
coins.
absolutely. And that's so significant. And then one of the other things that being able to go through that process and
Mhm.
realizing that there are others that have a similar story or can relate, it also helps you to not feel so alone, because entrepreneurship can be a lonely place, as well as developing into or evolving from
Yeah.
growing into, it could be
Mhm.
it can feel like a lonely place, but knowing that somebody else has journeyed
Yeah.
somewhat in the same capacity as you, it really does empower you to also move forward. And so that made me think about, I want to backtrack just a second, because it
Yeah.
made me think about vulnerability as a woman, and how emotional IQ is so important, but also how there's a difference between managing emotions, right? And being
Mhm.
able to lead, being able to run your business, all that stuff, and then being denied the opportunity to experience your
Mhm.
emotions as a woman. And then sort of that, like, that down that what's the word, a devaluing of
Mhm.
emotions to identity and the process,
Mhm.
because if I can't tap into my emotion about a trauma in order to be vulnerable enough to access it, to be able to move forward, then I could stay in that space. So I want to talk
Mhm.
about that for just a second, because you just experienced this with these ladies, and you talked
Mhm.
about the healing process as a result, and the empowerment. Let's talk about, do you have one or two stories, without
Mhm.
sharing their names, of just going through the emotions, right?
Mhm.
Being given the grace and the privilege of doing that in a safe space, in community, but
Yeah.
then that person came out on the other side and are thriving in a victorious capacity, because I want to elevate and highlight the
Mhm.
dynamicy and power of emotions. There's a difference in
Mhm.
having that emotional IQ, together, but there's also a necessity to
Yeah.
walk through the emotions and come out on the other side. So can you speak to that really quickly? I know this is impromptu, but I
Yeah.
need to talk about emotions and how significant, how it is okay.
Yeah, wow. So I think the first thing that came to mind, the first word that came to mind was baby.
Mhm.
We had two amazing women who wrote in this story that talked about, in the book, that talked about loss,
Mhm.
about the loss. Well, three actually, that
Mhm.
talked about the loss of a child.
Yeah.
Um, there's miscarriage, there's abortion, there
Mhm.
is um, tragic death. And I remember just how, not just with their stories, but I even think about women that I have coached individually who fall into that same baby birth category. And they might be in any one of those three sectors where
Yeah.
a baby has died, or it could be abortion, it could be, the inability to get pregnant, right?
Yeah.
And I just remember that with all of the women, whether in the book or from a coaching standpoint, how that narrative is always so hard because it's so private.
Mhm.
It's not something that you talk about openly. And
Yeah.
so there are so many women who are carrying the weight of loss of a
Yeah.
child.
Mhm.
Whatever way there was the loss, it's there. And the residue is so strong, Kim, and it is so heavy. And you see how it shows up in decision making in relationships.
Mhm.
Um, some of the women have talked about how their decision making in uh dating partners or spouses that they chose was they didn't know it then, but it was impacted by this significant loss. They
Mhm.
talked about even as parents, they might oh my goodness, I'm sorry. My Surrey decided to talk to me on my Apple Watch in the middle.
Oh, it's okay. My phone
But
does that too every
yeah,
now
I
and
was
then.
like,
Like,
wait a
nobody's
minute,
talking to you.
Siri, we not talking to you, girl. But they talked about even how it has shown up in dating relationships with their spouses. They have talked about from a faith perspective, has it how
Mhm.
it's shown up in terms of how they see God and how they
Yeah.
view God as a result of loss. They've
Mhm.
talked about how it's shown up in business for them because
Mhm.
many of them didn't feel like they deserved success. So, for
Mm.
example, if they made a decision to have an abortion, they
Mhm.
didn't deserve success because of that decision.
Right. Mhm.
They didn't deserve to be in a certain type of relationship. They didn't deserve to have victory in certain areas. And so it was a narrative of what
Yeah.
they didn't deserve or what they were not good enough for. And it's
Mm.
amazing out of a narrative of either not being able to give birth to something or to have given birth and then experience loss, how that shows up in business. So
Yeah.
now I'm afraid to be a risk taker
Mhm.
because what if it doesn't work?
Yeah.
What if time and time again, and what we know about entrepreneurship is that that's the nature of entrepreneurship is that sometimes can we just out here and
Mhm.
sometimes the
It's a
business
risk.
idea is gonna fly
Yeah.
and other
It's a
times
risk.
it's not gonna fly, right? So,
Absolutely.
so you think about the person in business who has that scar or that wound or that deep hurt that they've never talked about of
Mhm.
loss, how that
Yeah.
translates in business because now I don't want to step out there.
Mhm.
For the person of faith, it says, well, I don't want to step out there on faith because the last time I stepped out on faith, it didn't happen. It didn't work out.
Mhm.
I've been trying to have a baby, have a baby, have a baby. It's not happening. So God is not for me. So why would I go after this in business? So all along the way is shifting how we set goals and how we set strategies for what we want
Mm.
to accomplish because we're thinking in terms of loss. We're thinking
Mhm.
in terms of what I cannot accomplish. And so it definitely shows up. And I've seen it again when you read the stories of some of these women in the book anthology, combined with, I'm speaking about women I've worked with individually, you see that connecting place of loss and how
Yeah.
it shows up. Loss is
Yeah.
really, really big for people. And loss sometimes will keep us as business owners from trying again. That
Yeah.
when something flops, we won't
Mhm.
try it again. We'll
Yeah.
abandon. I'll say some of us, and I'm raising my hand because I'm some of us,
Mhm.
some of us are serial entrepreneurs, not because we've had so many great ideas, but we've been too afraid to try again when the thing we first tried didn't work.
Mhm.
So we're serial entrepreneurs because we keep trying different avenues because we too afraid to go back to the thing that failed the first time.
That's true.
It's me. I'm talking
Mhm.
about me. For the
Mhm.
person who's listening, I
Mhm.
say that with no air of judgment. I'm telling personally that narrative of loss is so big. It's so
Yeah.
big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it it goes across the board. Men, women, we all experience different levels of things, and I think a lot of times, we do understand that there's a different scenario when women come together
Yeah.
than we are in community where we can build up one another and strengthen one another. But we also
Mhm.
understand that men deal with their challenges. They just may not be as vocal about it. And in my coaching of men, I have
Mhm.
I have I have seen some of the struggles that they experience around loss, because that's what we're talking about,
Yeah.
around identity as well.
Mhm.
As an entrepreneur, will I fail again? I tried this and it didn't work.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why many never get an established, legitimate, structured business as
Mhm.
well, which is so significant to growth to have a
Mhm.
structured business. But because of the fact that this is the thing that worked, just hustling out of the car or whatever, maybe they failed when they tried the legitimate or what have you way. And
Yeah.
so loss is such an amazing, amazing, amazing thing
Mhm.
to look at when it
Yeah.
comes to business. And then so that then goes back to leadership,
Yeah.
mindset development, personal
Mhm.
development,
Yep.
having spiritual development, and that
Yep.
formula that you mentioned earlier, having different components to the day in
Yeah.
order to track your day and be successful step by step. I always say
Mhm.
this: the best way to eat a big old elephant is one small bite at a time.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to go back and really to say to the men who are watching or may listen to this episode, I think that you're so right when it comes to loss for
Yeah,
men. But you know what's interesting though is I think men do tell us, but men tell us through their actions as
yeah,
opposed to through their words.
absolutely.
And I think that's the reason why for so many of our brothers, we miss
Hmm.
the impact of loss in their lives because we may not hear it audibly, but they let us know by their actions
Yeah,
how it's impacting them. And so I want to acknowledge that space for, even though I primarily coach men, I mean coach women,
women.
I have coached men before, and their actions speak so loud.
Yeah,
And if we could just have an ear to
to
hear what they
hear.
don't say. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and
so
if we talk
powerful.
about identity when it comes to them, I know so
Yeah,
many men that struggle with imposter syndrome,
yeah,
that struggle with understanding and knowing their unique value because they
yeah,
haven't been told that story either.
right.
They haven't been told their value. The world, especially men of color, the
Yeah.
world has said to them that they are worth nothing, that they are
Mhm.
are going to jail, that they're not set
Yeah,
out to achieve anything, that
yeah.
if they have a kind of a mark on their back. And then
Mhm.
with Black women, there's the intersectionality of racism and sexism. And
Yep.
so that I see why and
Mhm.
understand why many people do not walk in their authentic selves, because number one, they don't know who they are, and number
Right.
two, they're trying to discover and figure that out from
Yeah.
somebody else, and nobody has told them, back to your point from earlier, how
Mhm.
wonderful they are being their unique selves.
Yeah.
What tools or what challenges have you faced, and what tools did you use to support your success to overcome those challenges, whether personally or professionally? And by
Mhm.
that I mean, like a calendar,
Mhm.
planning, CRM, or is it for a personal spiritual development, retreats, vacation, so that's what I mean by both personal and professional.
Yeah, absolutely. Something you said a few minutes ago is the cornerstone of how I do coaching with my
Hmm.
clients. And we look at three areas. We look at personal development, we look at spiritual development, and we look at leadership development, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
And so I think for me, that has been a reflection of what has worked in my own life personally. And
Yeah.
so to add to what I already offered in terms of mentors and coaches and Jesus and therapists, practical things that I do that I think can be valuable is journaling, right?
Mhm.
I think journaling is really, really important to be able to do. What I have found for me is journaling doesn't look like real traditional. I get a journal, Kim, and I use colored pens and markers, and I write sideways, however way I am feeling. I reflect that in my writing. So it is not this linear way of writing. It could be a picture, it could just simply be a color, it could be an image that I cut out of a magazine or something. That's what journaling does for me. And I have used it even as a recommended tool for my coaching clients because I think when you journal, it gives you an opportunity to explore your authentic self. Because when you journal without judgment. That's what I always tell my clients. Journal
Yeah.
without judgment. Don't judge what you're writing. Don't critique it. Don't go back and reread it as though you're going to turn it in like it's a dissertation and everybody is going to read it.
Yeah.
Journaling is so personal because it allows you to explore your own inner thoughts.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that is so powerful is when we take the time to get to know who we are. So
Mhm.
often we go into relationships, and that could be personal or that can be business as well. We go into relationships and we don't really know who we are, and we don't know
Mhm.
what we really like. We don't know what we really want. And I think journaling has a way of uncovering that, and it's unfiltered.
Yeah.
Journaling is a raw experience.
I am
And
a
so
big fan of journaling. I
yeah,
am a huge fan of journaling, and
yeah,
really, and I you mentioned something about what it does. It helps you to
mhm,
see yourself. It helps you to really get with your thoughts. And I
yeah,
know for I've gone through a phase in my life where I stopped journaling because I didn't want to get with my thoughts.
yeah,
Right? But once you
yeah,
get with your thoughts,
mhm,
your vision, you praying over your journal, whatever, you meditating,
yeah,
you're able to create
mhm.
greater things. A book can come from journaling. I absolutely love journaling.
Yes, absolutely.
To
Now
sum that up.
something practical I use, and there is no official name to it. There's not an
Mhm.
app. I'm sure there's an app for it because there's an app for everything. But right in front of me, I have this whiteboard, and I
Mhm.
buy colored Post-it notes.
Mhm.
And so I use this in my personal life and I use this in business as well. So when I'm mapping out a new coaching program or service for clients, I get a whiteboard and I use sticky notes and I categorize things and prioritize them using a color coded system. And
Mhm.
that same principle has worked in my life when I've had so many things on my plate and I've asked myself, Synetheia, what you doing? You it's too much. It's too much. I put everything up there on the board. And so when you can see it all in front of you, you can begin to literally shift things around and shift the priority of things in your life. And it
Mhm.
allows us to make critical decisions about what needs to remain on the board or what needs to come off the board, what needs to be shifted in priority. We can move
Yeah.
those things around. And that is powerful. I'm going to say that again in business and your personal life. Whiteboarding, mapping it out is a powerful tool.
I agree.
It's a
Yep.
powerful tool. And again, I'm sure there's an app for it. I don't use the app. I'm kind of old fashioned that way. I still like to get a pen and some paper and stick it up
Yeah.
on a board. So I think
Yeah.
that works really well. In business, I will tell you that a tool that has helped me with scheduling, I've used two different tools. I've used Calendly and I've used
Mhm.
Acuity as well. Scheduling. And that is so big for me because I do still work in the marketplace in a traditional 9 to 5, in addition to my businesses, and just being able to manage all the responsibilities and being able to keep track of people who desire to be served and to be connected with. I've used
Yeah.
those practical tools and they have been wonderful for me because they sync right to my phone. I can even
Yeah.
connect my calendar so it makes sure that I don't have conflicts. And so those practical tools have worked very well for me professionally and being able to even maintain priorities in my personal life, Kim,
Yeah.
because I have found myself in seasons so engulfed in business
Yeah.
that it's easy to lose important of the things that are still important, like family. It's important
Absolutely.
being daughter. It's important being sister. It's important to me to be auntie and great auntie and to be friend.
Mhm.
And so scheduling systems are really good ways for me to organize my time. So that has been very
Yeah.
helpful as well. Um, I think something else in business that has helped is financially, two things financially, personal side and business side, is that a coach, financial coaches. So I'm gonna
Yes.
do a plug for you right now. Okay. Because
I didn't ask her to do this, y'all.
she did not.
But it's true.
I am speaking this personally where I needed someone to help me with my finances personally and in business. And it
Mhm.
wasn't just about from a personal standpoint getting out of debt, but it was also setting critical and strategic goals to help me to develop wealth over time.
Yeah.
Right. And then there was the business side of helping me to look at what am I currently bringing into my business? And
Yep.
what are my goals for what I want to bring in? What does that look like on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis?
Mhm.
Um, and it also helped to allow me to forecast where do I want to be financially in my business? So the same principle personally worked in business as well. So investing in a financial coach, a financial planner, is dope when you get both together that have the
Yeah.
licensing to do planning and coaching.
Mhm.
It is so important because it helps us to organize and think critically about where we want to go. And particularly
Absolutely.
for people who have children, you want to build generational wealth for your children and leave something behind other than debt. You need a financial coach and planner to be able to assist you in business. You need somebody that can look at your books to
Yes.
say, one, you're not keeping your records right.
Yes.
Two, you said this is the goal you want to reach, but how you're executing monthly is not going to get you to that place. So then they
Yeah.
go back and help you to look at your strategy. And maybe part of your strategy in business is looking at how you're pricing your products and services. And so
Yep.
being able to have that. And so I'll add to financial coach, planner, business coach, right?
Yes.
Because a lot of times they're not the same. Now, my financial planner, financial coach is also a great business coach too. But I have had pure business coaches that all they do is help me to look critically at my business and ask me
Mm.
the questions that will help me to scale or scale up or scale down, because there have been times where I needed to scale down. I was doing too
Yep.
much and I could not be effective. So you need to have a business coach. For those who are in business, you need a
Yes.
coach because things make sense to us in our head.
Mhm.
It makes perfect sense to us. But when it comes to actually how is this going to be executed, it is so helpful to be able to sit at the table with a coach or even with a company of advisors, which
Yes.
a company of advisors may be professional or they could just be people that you trust to help you to chart out the right course for your business is so invaluable. So those are the
Yeah.
immediate things that kind of come to mind in addition to having a mentor, coach, Jesus, and therapist.
Yes. Yes, this has all been so great. For
Yeah.
those who are just joining and didn't get all of the goodness, then please go back and watch the replay. This has been great information, and you do not want to miss an ounce of it. Like, it's been so good, and the tips are so good. We are tackling fourth quarter because we want to walk into the new year ready. We
Yeah.
want to walk into the new year with confidence, a new walk into that new dimension that is available to us. And so the only way that we can do that is to begin to do the things that are necessary to get there, to implement now, today, and
Yeah.
don't give up. Do not give up. Do
Yeah.
not, let me say it one
That
more
is
time.
so
Do not
critical.
give up. We talked about
Yeah.
that in the beginning of our time
Yeah.
together, perseverance. And so,
Yeah.
as we close out, I want to give you last opportunity to just anything you want to share with us, anything you have coming up that we can plug into. Please feel free to share that now.
Yeah. So first, I just want to say thank you so much for this space and opportunity to come in and chat. This was amazing to be able
Thank
to do this.
you.
The other thing that I want to say is you think about your fourth quarter success goals. I want to push you a little bit farther. If you are listening, and particularly if you are a business owner, I want to speak to you first as a business owner and say to you, not only think critically about what fourth quarter looks like and what 2023 looks like, you should already be charting a course for the next 5 years,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
So I think naturally we tend to think about preparation and success. It's good to think about it on a quarterly basis, on a monthly basis. All of that
Hmm.
is good. But one of the things that we have to have as business owners is we have to have vision.
Yes.
So think in a 5-year window. Based
Yes.
on where I'm at now, what is my trajectory over the next 5 years? What
Hmm.
are the products, the businesses, the services that I'm offering now, and what will they look like in a 5-year window? One of the things as business owners that we should have learned in the pandemic is that you have to be able to pivot. But I dare to say pivot is important, but preparation is even more important, because I
Yes.
think for some of us, if we have been thinking critically in 5-year windows, for those who were hit hard as small business owners in the pandemic, you would have been a little more prepared if you were thinking
Yeah.
5 years out, because 5 years out challenges you to ask the question, is the way I'm offering my services and products now going to be relevant a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now?
Very good.
And I say that principle is the same in our personal lives. We should have a vision for our lives as well. Where do we want to be financially in the next 5 years? Where do we want to be in our mental health? Where do we want to be in our physical health? What does that look like? The Synetheia today, what is it that I desire for her to look like 5 years from now? And what will it take to get there? So I
Yes.
want to always offer that as a coach. I always want to offer a challenge as I close out because I want you to think critically beyond this time that we've had together as to what this means to you and how you can apply it to your life. And so the last piece that I would say is please do go to imdrnewby.com. If you'd like to connect with me, you can go there. To get information on how to email me, reach out to me on all social media platforms. You can find me at I am Dr. Newby. I am not hard to find on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and on Facebook as well. And so, also, the
Yes.
last thing I'll say is that if you would like to get a copy of the Lioness Lead Stories of Triumph Over Fear, to hear the stories of 14 amazing women, you can always go to Amazon to get a copy, or you can also, again, go to imdrnewby.com and click any of the links there to get your copy. Thank you, Kim.
So awesome. Yes, so awesome. So this has been amazing. So amazing. You all be sure to stay plugged in to Dr. Sanithia. I am so honored to have had you today. I would
Thank
love for you to
you.
come back on maybe another platform or even
Yeah.
back again to this one because you know I have the Love and Flow TV
Yeah.
show and we like to have guests on that one as well. But this has just been so dynamic. And so you all stay plugged into Dr. Newby. Go ahead and get that book, The Lioness Leads. Follow her and all the things that she has going on. Somebody said excellent information. I agree. Oh, thank you, Brianna. A round of
Yeah.
applause.
Thanks, Brianna.
So I want to share with you all that we do have some things coming up with Coffee and Collaborations Media on tomorrow, November the hold on, I'm sorry, on November the 2nd. Yeah, that's tomorrow. On tomorrow, November 2nd at 6 p.m., we have the power of the votes where we will have Kerwin Pittman, who is an activist a lot of people know in this area because he's often on the news, but even beyond this area, and then Elton Benjamin, who is an enterpriser, but also, guess what? You guys know we love him here because he's our graphic designer and brand developer for Coffee and Collaborations Media. With myself and my co host, Kimberly McGee, you can join us right back here. And as well, it will be accessed at Love and Flow at 6 p.m. We're going to talk about the power of the vote. We're going to talk about how our vote matters. We're going to go into some serious conversation that I cannot wait. I told them they are so passionate, all of them, about this particular subject. I am going to produce very well. Like I'm just gonna be over there like but you know, we all have excellent commentary, and so I'm excited. So you guys mark your calendars, join us back here tomorrow at 6 p.m. I'm so excited about that. And then also, don't forget, next week we are starting the detox. So for those who want to join, get your finances in order. It is not too late. You can join the debt detox. There is the information. You can reach out to me at KimberlyWinborneLLC.com or inbox me or whatever, but you can register at bit.ly/she wins. And this is going to be a virtual bi-weekly workshop that is going to last between November 7th and December the 19th. So right before Christmas, we're focusing on the things that we need to do in our finances in order to get ourselves together. So reach out to me if you would like to join. And then thank you to our sponsor. We already just mentioned one of our sponsors, rather. We just mentioned him, Elton Benjamin. If you need advertising and marketing, which includes strategy, consulting, art, direction, graphic design. If you need digital media and web, which includes web design, social media campaigns, or you need multimedia production in the area of photography, videography, or live stream production, industry image, run by Elton Benjamin. And he also does partnership and collaboration with Walter Jeanette in a company called The Firm. He is recalibrated for 2023. And so if he's recalibrated, he can recalibrate you in order to get to where you need to get. And so Thank you to you once again, Dr. Synetheia, for joining. You all, thank you for joining. I really appreciate you. And I will see you back here next week with another guest. So, our guest next week is Mr. McCasey Anyika. He's a very successful business owner. He has been in leadership for a very long time, and he has made lots of money in the area of what he does, and is going to be able to provide us some fourth quarter success skills to implement so that you can also make some great money. His company is K Quest Vision Global. And so he's going to be our guest next week. So join us right back here, November 8th, 5 p.m., for our happy hour leadership, collaboration discussion on the Collaboration Culture Podcast. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Dr. Synetheia. Y'all have a great evening.